I haven't done one of these in a while, you guys. I don't know if I'm going to do them every day, but I'm going to definitely try to get on um, a few times a week to come on here and just provide a little bit of biblical perspective into what we're seeing around us, and some historical perspective, mixed in there. A lot of times we're able to look out into society and figure out what's going on to the best of our ability with the information that we have. But if our information is limited, then our perspective will be limited as well. We don't even know the possibilities of things that are if we don't have the information as to what it may look like. You guys, if you haven't seen some of the other videos or are new to the channel, then this is a Hebraic channel. We worship the Father um, uh, through His Son Yahusha. We use the term Yah-O as the Father's name. It is not a popular pronunciation, but we do believe it's the correct according to the historical documentation and the linguistic clues that are in Hebrew in order to get to that point. But that's not what we're discussing here tonight. I wanted to discuss Ashkanazim encounters. And I say that, I guess, tongue in cheek because it's really not a topic that I want to go too deep into, right? This is not going to be a series or anything like that. What I don't want to do is to have this channel devolve into a white versus black, Jew versus Gentile style channel. Do you see what I'm saying? I do think that that is not what Father would have for us to do, is to point out differences as opposed to preach unification. I do think that I believe and I know that Israel was sent to the nations, and we are supposed to be a light to the nations. So, uh, constantly disparaging and um, having, nothing, no good things to say is not what I want this channel to be focused on. I do want to put a accurate historical analysis, you know, for us to look at maybe and study and understand and have perspective as to what to do in the future. And so if you do that, there then comes the identification and the I guess you would say analyzation of the things that have happened to us as a people, and that does necessitate a racial study biblically. So we know that that is a part of biblical understanding, but we do not want to make that the focus, and we do not want to make it derogatory in nature. And if it ever comes off as such, you guys, please forgive me, because that is not my intent. Um, with that being said, we do get into some moments in your life when there are just strange encounters that allow you to recognize what's going on in the world, particularly what's going on in the world right behind the scenes. Do you see what I'm saying? And in my walk, I've been walking Torah. You would say a Nazarene, believing. I guess you would say the Revelation 14:12, having the testimony of Yahusha and keeping the commandments. We've been walking that way since, I suppose I would say 2015, 2014, around that time. And there was a big wave of that entered in at that time. So I suppose there was some sort of underground push that was pushing people into a direction. And we were for sure caught in that wave in 2014, 2015. We know what the underground push was, the spirit, because we know that everybody will know. But but yes, we came into the truth in 2014, 2015. So you could say we're going on a decade now. We're getting really close to it. So in my walk, I've been in various stages. Shalom, shalom, Mishpachah. We got one person on here. Um, so in my walk, I've been through various stages and, have done various studies. And as you guys have known, I've been through a few um, academic institutions and had an opportunity to converse with some uh, great minds, I would say, in both the scholastic community and in the biblical community and in the archaeological community even. And so I'm really appreciative of my experience in that matter. And then when you go and when you're in these circles, you come, to some wild instances, right? And so one of those times that I want to talk about is when I was in school, right? And I guess I can start with really the earliest instance because that would kind of show you the progress um, of understanding. Do you understand what I mean? As far as the people that I meet, right? And so I'm in school at this time, and I'm right there at the end of my education, and I'm writing my final paper. And this is a paper on the name of Yahuwah. And as we, just discussed a minute ago, we have since then changed pronunciation to Yah-O instead of Yahuwah. Even though in my educational, experience in the educational program that I completed, in order to complete it, I had to write a paper, and that paper I based it on the pronunciation of Yahuwah, and that's crazy because it's a 32-page, very sourced, documented paper that's completely wrong, you guys. But anyway, that's a side note. That's a story for another time. I'm sitting there finishing this paper, and I'm at a Starbucks, right? And so a lot of you guys will get on me right away. Oh, what are you doing at Starbucks? How can you support? A lot of people don't support Starbucks. I don't really pour. I guess you could say I support it because I bought a coffee and sat down and used the internet. But I'm not like a Starbucks fan. It's not like I have to have a Starbucks or support the franchise. I was using it at that time to have a nice, cool place to relax. So you guys forgive me. But at this time, I had, you know, locks in my head. My locks were about shoulder length. I was wearing a full length white garment down to my ankles. Of course, I dressed Eastern at that point in my walk. In my educational experience, I dressed completely Eastern. And so I also have my fizz at the bottom of the robe with the ribbon of blue, right? And so I'm sitting there, and I'd been in there for a good little while. The sun was starting to go down, and two Hasidic, and I think that's how you pronounce it, Hasidic Jews. I hope I'm, getting that correct. Two Hasidic Jews come in, and they got the hat and the little curly cues and the all black on, right? The Russian style, right? And so they come in, they notice me, and I notice them, and they kind of give me the head nod. And I'm giving them the head nod back, and I can see them, kind of like taking in the whole scene, right? You can tell when somebody's like trying to figure out what's going on. I'm sure he sees the fringes and the ribbon, both of them, and think that there's something going on. So they sit down at their table. It's a heavy set older guy and then a slim younger guy, right? And they both in the jacket hat. They got the whole get up with the curly cues and everything. And so I'm sitting there, right, and I tell myself, should I go over there and introduce myself and kind of tell them what's going on? Let them do their thing, right? I'm doing my thing, they're doing. I'm into it even. Let them do their thing. And so they keep looking up. And of course, I'm doing my thing. I see them. And eventually they're like, come here, come over here. Let me holler at you for a second. I'm sure they didn't say that, but that's what they meant. They meant let me holler at you. So I went over there and sat down, introduced myself, and kind of told them what we believed. And of course, we believe that the children of Israel are the Black Americans. I think by the scripture, we know by the scripture in Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26, that these curses identify who the children of Israel are, and they'll have to be satisfied in some group on the face of the planet, and they are the most satisfied in this particular group in this nation that you're in right now. And of course, they introduced themselves to me. You've got the, we said, older guy who is Jewish, but is American, right? So he's not really an Ashkanazim. Know that they both fall under Magog. The Khazars were a Magog clan to go through the Caucasus Mountains to the south and invade the whole Eastern European area. And then we also know that there was another group of Magogites called the Goths, went to the west and conquered Germany and then on down into Europe in that direction, England and all those different places. So we know these are two different types of Goths, but they're significant in the modern day because they're separated now by religion and location. Even though this American man is now converted to Judaism, he's an American, right? So he's, comes from the Gothic line of Magogites and not the Khazar line or the Turkish line, the Gok Turk line. So the older guy was an American, the younger guy was Ashkanazim. And so they're just explaining, and I remember the guy's name. His name was Zeb, which he said meant wolf. And he wanted to make sure I knew that they called me wolf, And so we're talking back and forth. And as I'm explaining the situation of the text with them and why I am the way I am, I can see the older guy just, starting to bubble inside. And he's got an answer for everything that I'm saying. Well, what about this? What about that? What about this line? What about that line? And, I'm just really, look, it is what it is. The text says what it says. I can't do anything further about it. If it agrees more in line with me than it does with you, then there's nothing that I can do about that. The history really points in a certain direction. And while I'm, we're going back and forth about it, the Ashkanazim guy, he's in front of me, and I'm, discussing with the older guy on my left. And, Zeb is in front of me, right? And we're about the same age, and Buddy is older. And so as he's doing that, he slides back in his chair, and me and him are going at it. And then he looks at me and goes, this guy, the Ashkanazim goes, he giving me the signal like, yeah, you really have this understanding, and I have the same understanding as you do. He's giving me the eye like, I get it, and I know where you're coming from, and I agree, right? But I'm not saying it out loud. And you see, it's these moments in time where, like, okay, so the people that know, right? They're not confused. The people that are confused are really on this end. Do you see what I'm saying? Or on the American side, the people that are just, everyday Joes and really not privy to some of the information that some of these specialized groups have. Like these Ashkanazim have this special information that they don't. And so they know that they're keeping up this lie. They know that they're doing these things in order to solidify this false heritage that they have, right? And in waking reality, sometimes you come to those moments where you meet, right? And you don't have to really say anything in order for you both to understand, I know where I am, where you are. I see you where you are, and you see me where I am, and we recognize it. And we move on from there. Do you see what I'm saying? And that was one of those moments then. Even though the older gentleman may have recognized it or may have just been fighting against it, the younger guy was like, yeah, I recognize the situation, and hey, I'm here with you, and ain't nothing I can do about it either. Do you see what I'm saying? For those moments. And so that was really the first time that I got a chance to sit down and actually talk to the other side, right? We in study sometimes slant our approach, because, and I say slant, I don't mean slant. It's an accurate depiction, but it becomes slanted when it takes over um, your direction, right? If you, instead of following the Father and worshiping and, being, kind and gentle and trying to do the things that are right in the Father's eyes, if you leave that walk and go towards some sort of doctrine that's anti anybody else, then you're not doing anybody any favors, right? The person that you're preaching to, you're not going to win that soul because you're teaching them a hate doctrine. And that's not what we are here for. It's not what we're here for at all. What we are here for is to recognize what's going on. And in these moments, in these, you know, moments in time that we get to recognize what's going on, it's appreciated. Do you see what I'm saying? It's appreciated because that's not what we're here for. We're not here to cause division or strife or drama. It's everybody's parents who screwed up. So the recognition of that, being where we are now, is very important. But in those recognitions, we have these small moments of clarity, right? You could call these moments of clarity. And so the second time I ran into an opportunity to converse with an Ashkenazi Jew, I was in a whole different scenario, right? I was in a whole different frame. By this time, I'd graduated from college and I had started a career in the trucking business, right? And so in trucking, I was a driver, but I also advertised for my business. And that involved going to conferences, in places all over the country. I only got a chance to go to one, but this particular conference is in multiple areas. It's different every year. And so I was able to travel and to do some of these things. And I'll go to a conference in Orlando, Florida, and I end up down there meeting this guy, right? So I'm down there and I'm at this conference and I got my cards and I've got everything ready and I've got my fringes on, right? And so there's a large Hasidic Jewish presence at this conference. And I don't know necessarily why. I guess it's a business style thing. And I know that, these guys these Ashkanazim are heavy businessmen. So they're in the mix just like I'm in the mix, right? So I'm advertising transportation and then they're advertising whatever it is, whatever business that they have. And so one guy notices my ZZs and I notice his. And the thing about the curly Q hat wearing Hasidic guys is that they do things just a little different. When I see their ZZs, they're all white. And they're like all the way down to knees sometimes, all the way down to the floor sometimes. And, it's just a little bit different. So he sees me and I've got my ZZs on and he's got his get up on too. And so he stops me and says, "Hey, what's up, man? What you doing?" And I said, "I'm here selling my brand, And I give him my card. He gives me his. And I said, "What's up? What's going on?" And he said, "What you doing? What's that? Right? What's this? What's up with all that?" And I kind of feel confronted. I look at his card, and he's from Brooklyn, right? He's a Brooklyn Jew, the Ashkanazim kind, not the Jay-Z kind. Because see, here's the thing. I have another story after this one, and it involves Brooklyn. And I didn't know that the Jewish presence in Brooklyn was so pronounced. And I guess I'll get to that part. But here I am in Orlando, Florida, and I meet this guy, right? And this is what he says to me, right? He says, "So what's up? What's up with all this? What's going on?" And I said, "Oh, well," I give him the whole spiel like I do the other guy a couple years earlier. We believe that we are the chosen people of Elohim. We are the children of Israel, as prophesied about in the Bible. We believe we're in the situation we're in right now in America because of our disobedience to the commandments and to Messiah. I believe that the Deuteronomy 28 curses fit our group of people like no other people on the face of the planet. Do you see what I mean? And he said, yeah, 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 yeah. And this is not a like a agreement. This is like a yeah, 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 yeah. I know. I know that's what you believe. Type of deal, right? And look, and here's the interesting part. Here's the psychological aspect of it. And again, guys, this is before um, October 7th, right? So the world changed on October 7th. Everybody kind of realized what type of nation that Israel is, and really once they start looking, what type of nation that Israel has been, for the past, since its inception, right? People have begun to realize that in force since October 7th. And, clearly it was meant to be the opposite um, with this attack that Israel fomented against itself, but it's kind of had an opposite effect because Israel is clearly just wiping Gaza off of the map. But this is pre October 7th. This is way back in 2019, 2020. I believe it's right before COVID. You see what I'm saying? And so at this time, there was some other things going on. And so this is what he tells me. He says to me, yeah, 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 yeah. I get all that, but why are you so mad? And I say to him, what? I'm not mad at all. What am I coming off to you aggressive? I'm just explaining to you the nature of the situation. He said, no, 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 not you. Why are y'all so mad? And I said, I'm not mad. I'm sitting here talking to you right now. In fact, I don't know anybody that's mad. I know people that are aggressive. Do you see what I'm saying? But I don't know anybody that's mad. If there was people that's mad, there'd be something else going on. Do you see? You see what I'm saying? A mob of mad black folks could do something else. You haven't seen that, not whatsoever. Not once have you seen that. Not from our community, not at all. You see what I'm saying? We've been in captivity for 400 years. And you've seen slave rebellion, but you ain't seen nothing like what you're seeing in Gaza right now. I mean, we do that to each other, but we don't do that to nobody else. And he said, what about that shooting in New Jersey? So there was a shooting in New Jersey that they say a Hebrew Israelite family, husband and wife, was involved in. Turns out they weren't Israelites, or something was wrong with the whole thing. I had researched it back then at that time, and I can't remember all the detail of it. But if you guys look it up, it was in 2019, 2020, something like that. There was supposed to be a Hebrew Israelite couple that got into a shootout or some sort of had killed somebody. But the details of that situation were all messed up. Either that they didn't do this crime, or they were set up, or they weren't Hebrews, or they are Hebrews and didn't do it. Something was really, really off about it. And I can't remember right now, but I knew then. And so I'd say to the guy, wait, 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 wait. That was all messed up anyway. This was there and that was there. And this situation was crazy. But really, we are not mad. Because if we were, you would know it already. But it's interesting that you say, why are you so mad? Because it feels like think that we should be. You see what I mean? This is the kind of, and this wasn't no old guy, right? This was a kid. He had his own business and everything, but he looked like he could have been 24, 25. And by that time, I'm way older. I'm in my 30s. But it looks like I'm about 10 years or so older than him, but he's like, why are you so mad, right? And and from his perspective, he's a young guy. He could know, he could not know, could pay attention, he could, know these different things. They could talk among themselves and understand these things. And we would never know except for these little cues and clues that they do know and that they do feel some type of way and that they all feel this same type of way but are all hiding it. Because in his zealousness for trying to cover up who he is, he spills the beans that he thinks we're angry. You see what I'm saying? He believes we're angry. right? And even though you do have people on the corner with the bullhorns and saying these things and saying these things, it doesn't translate to being actually mad. Do you see what I'm saying? Because actual anger looks a certain way. You see how when people get mad at one another in the community, what they do to one another. Do you see what I'm saying? When people are really angry, you can tell our people are not angry. We are just aggressive. You see what I'm saying? We're just aggressive. And that's obvious, but it's not obvious to someone who's already guilty. That every single word that's spoken from those bullhorns, whether it be with a tinge of salt or with a kind spirit or with a lion's roar, they gonna feel it. They gonna feel every one of them and respond to it in a way that won't give themselves up, publicly, but maybe psychologically give you that cue. So you know that we're supposed to be mad, huh? You see what I'm saying? So again, this is not to say, oh, well, we are this or we are that, and y'all are this or y'all are that. It's not meant to point fingers. It's not meant to play the race game, who's greater than who, or any of those things. It's just one of those moments in life where you get an opportunity to have a moment of clarity. So you do understand, huh? You understand that we should be angry about this thing, but we're actually not, because here I am talking to you right now. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that was that moment. That was the second moment. And so the third moment is something I was telling my boys about not too long ago, but experience that I got to have with my wife, right? And so in starting this trucking business, I'm the driver for the business, and we have an opportunity to brand. And in doing so, we decide to put the Father's name in the brand. So wherever we're going, people will look at the side of the truck and see that it's, see kind of what time it is, right? A way to advertise the Father's name and to do it in a way that's entrepreneurial. So if someone comes up and asks me, I get an opportunity to share the good news, and with the good news, also the entrepreneurial spirit that comes along with that. Starting our own things, our own businesses, and being upwardly mobile in that fashion as well. It's two things, right? And so this is the reason why we advertised in the way we did. And so, passing by on the freeway, I'm in a hotshot truck, so in a small truck, the big rigs, but a small truck with a flatbed trailer. I see another hotshot pass by with the same getup, with the same father's name on the side of his truck. And so we shout each other out, shalom, we take down each other's number. Of course, we're doing the same thing, so we're, have a lot in common. So, it's mutual recognition. And so with that being said, there's two sides, right? So your brothers are gonna notice you, but then other people are too. People that recognize what the word means. Do you see what I'm saying? And so one of the things that me and my wife, before we got married, wanted to do or had decided to do with one another was to go to New York City. In fact, the place where we met, we used to sit next to each other and talk about the places we wanted to go and the things we wanted to do. And one of the things that we both wanted to do was one day in the future go to New York City and experience the big city, right? And this is, of course, before we knew Babylon. But even when we knew it was Babylon, we wanted to go see it, right? This is the heart of darkness, right? We want to take a look at it, right? And I guess before I get into this story, shalom, shalom, family. I see there's somebody else on here. Shalom, shalom. Before I get into this story, I kind of want to discuss Brooklyn a little bit, right? And how weird Brooklyn is, because I had no idea before I went up there. And so going up there, owning this business, we go and deliver in Manhattan. Of course, Manhattan is everything that I had imagined it would be. And so we come there, we're in all these skinny lanes of traffic, and we, with the long trailer in the back, we making it. We deliver and we get out of Manhattan and we go straight over into Brooklyn. And so we go down one street in Brooklyn, and it was just Hasidic Jews everywhere. It felt like you were in Israel, or what people would imagine Israel today would be. There was Hasidic Jews. It was just a whole community full of people who looked Amish. And I thought to myself, wow. And not only that, it continued to go on and on and on. And whatever time of day it was, it must have been when the kids were letting out of school, because we saw so many really cute kids walking around like Amish folks that it was crazy to me. And here's the even crazier part. We go straight to the next block, and there's Marcy Projects, where Jay-Z is from, right? And so you've got the false Jews and the real Jews right next to each other, looking at each other on the same block. Do you see what I'm saying? And here's the wild part about it. All the false Jews know who the real Jews are, but the real Jews don't know who they are themselves. So you have this right next door comparison to one another in like this weird, bizarro world. Do you see what I'm saying? Literal Jews in literal concentration camps, and false Jews in high-rise condos right across the street watching. It blew my mind. I'm thinking, wow, what in the world? What's going on? Do you see what I'm saying? It really blew my mind. You had people walking right down in front of Marcy Projects like it just wasn't nothing, with the curly Q song, just walking like it wasn't nothing. And I said, man, that's crazy, because you wouldn't have something like this in where I'm from, in the South. You've got really defined spaces. The projects are the center of the black neighborhood. You got a surrounding black neighborhood around the projects. Not in New York, I guess. They had the projects, and then what we call the Jewish establishment, what it was, the yeshiva or whatever it's called. They had the projects, and then you had the yeshiva next door. And I hope I'm getting that right. Is that right? I don't know, but the kibbutz is right next door, right? That's crazy. It just blew my mind. And then the other thing that I did not know about Brooklyn either. It's this big, huge city. It's got like 1 million people in, and I'm looking, I'm like, man, this look kind of small. Is this really what Brooklyn is about? And so I went, and I didn't see what I thought to be the music and I just saw a hustle and bustle. And I mostly saw these Jews, right? And so I go back and I do a little bit of research, and I'll get to the story here in a minute. But it comes to find out that Brooklyn has 66 projects, different projects in the city. So it's literally a land of concentration camps in Brooklyn. It's the wildest thing that I've ever known. Like, most of the people are living in the projects, right? It's crazy. And I just never knew it was like, where you had such the stark differentiation between communities that are connected in an unspoken way. Do you see what I'm saying? From one block to the next. All that being said, I'm here in Brooklyn with my wife and my daughter. We're driving through. We're in the hotshot truck. We've got the father's name in Paleo Hebrew written on the side of the truck with the business name. And we're going through one of these Jewish neighborhoods. And I see this guy, right? And he's kind of walking hunched over. He's an old guy. He's got the long beard and the curly cues. And he's got the little hat on. And he's got a briefcase, right? Got a briefcase that looks like it's small enough to be a Bible. And so he's walking. They've got the Bible briefcases. Like, it's got the little pen holders and where you can take notes and do all these things in it. And so that's what it looks like. And so he's walking into this building. And I'm going down the street, going the same direction that he is. And I'm kind of slow rolling because I'm looking in, I'm taking in all the the Ashkanazism of it all. You see what I'm saying? And I look over at him, and he's turned and he's walking in, and this is before I catch up to him, so he hasn't seen my truck yet. And so he's walking into his building, and I see him do this, right? He turns and takes a look, and then he turns back as if it's nothing, and then he double takes, right? I see him because I'm driving, I'm taking in the whole thing. I see him turn, look, and then come back, and then double take back. And as he double takes, I see him look at the door to the truck, and I see him look up at me, and we catch eyes. We catch eyes. And I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me, and he does this, and then walks right into the building. You see what I mean? Moment of clarity. In the split second it took for him to recognize who I was and for me to know who he is, and then look up, and in that moment of time, in that half a second of time, 500 years of history is like passing by. You know how they say lightning actually strikes a whole bunch of times, it goes up and down. It's like that between, it's like 500 years in like a millisecond, between I know who you are and you know who I am. Go right on back to your business. And again, this doesn't, it's not meant to like point at him and say, oh, you evil, da 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 da. It's not to point back at me and say, oh, I'm righteous, da da da. None of that. It's just a moment in time where the veil is lifted. Do you see what I'm saying? Where everybody in the room understands and they're on opposing sides. Do you see what I mean? It's not every day when you get those moments happen. And those times when they do happen stand out very brightly against a background of confusion and ignorance, right? When you get so many people that don't have a clue, even from the other side of the coin, when you see someone and you recognize that they recognize right away, it's one of those type of moments, and it stands out. And we say hallelujah for that, for being able to have these moments of clarity, because the information does matter. How do you know who to follow, what to do, where to go, what to say? You see what I'm saying? If you're following the wrong people, and in the time when it comes for us to be judged, if we're judged by our actions and what we did for not only our own people, but for this group of people that are historically oppressed and called to be oppressed because of their transgressions. But again, in the gospel, it required that in the epistles, Paul required that the Gentile churches not only respect the Jerusalem churches, but also donate to them. Also make sure that they weren't starving or in need, even when they themselves didn't have anything to eat. I think it was the churches of Macedonia that were poor, and and could not donate food or money to the people in Jerusalem, but came to work. Do you see what I'm saying? This is the question that'll be asked in in the new millennium. Do you see what I'm saying? Where were you when the Hebrews woke up, and what did you do about it? Do you see what I mean? You live in the era right now where the Hebrews have woken up. That's an era that hasn't been around in 500 plus years. We've been in a deep, deep sleep for 400 years. Right now, you live in the era where we woke up. Whether you Jew or Gentile, what did you do about it? Do you see what I'm saying? This is the era when they woke up. At some point in time, you're going to be asked, what did you do to help? What did you do to help the situation? We live in a time where information right now is power, and our people need the information in order to know what to do next. If we have the information, it's our responsibility to publish it, right? Because We know that knowing who your father is very important. Knowing where your family is very important. And if you have Yahusha, son of Elohim, in your family tree, guess what? You're going to need to know that. Do you see what I mean? And in this era, you have an opportunity to, as a Jew or a Gentile, help that come to pass. And those 500 years of sleep, when I looked up and saw that man and he looked back at me, transpired in a moment because we both knew what time it was. You see what I'm saying, y'all? Moment of clarity. That's really all I've got for you guys. These are the times in my walk when I've encountered Ashkenazi Jews, and when we've had sat down and had a conversation, and not the last time, maybe even if it was a mental back and forth for that moment, had a realization of, or the realization of the times that we're in. Do you see what I'm saying? And so that's really all I got, guys. I know uh, we can stay on here and do questions. If anybody has any questions, I watched a couple of other live channels. Was it last night? Yeah, last night. And it's really just a lot of people on there just sitting there and I guess waiting for questions. I don't know if I'm gonna do that because I'm on here for a specific purpose. But if anybody has any questions or uh, contentions or topics of interest that people would want to hear about, some of the things that we got coming up are reparations. I want to tell you guys, my computer crashed, and I know this is some sort of sign from the Father that I need to be doing something different, but my music is on hold and my videos are on hold right now until I can get my computer back up and running. I'm just gonna be doing lives like this, y'all. So I guess maybe this is what the Father wants me to do. Come on here um, as much as I can to try to give perspective, from a Hebraic or history from a Hebraic perspective, and try to interpret the scripture to the best of my ability to be able to give people a real clear picture of what you see around you today. That is the goal of this channel. Um, I do intend on exploring a lot of the mysteries of the Bible, um, and then also just breaking down the way that things work. There are a lot of misconceptions about what is to be done. That was a question that I got actually from one of the viewers in one of the other videos. I've got a video called, or a video series called What America, where it just basically goes over how America is established as this big concentration camp for Hebrews, with the Magogite um, population at large, the wardens of this concentration camp. And I was asked a really good question, as a believer, what do you do about it? What do you do about that? What do you do next? Excellent question. And, I answered to the best of my ability. If you're a believer and you recognize that this is the situation, that you actually live in Babylon, and whether you're Jew or Gentile, you are now a part of the Babylonian system, and your movements and actions will reflect a Babylonian society. Now, what do you do about that? How do you get out of the servitude? How do you get out of the slavery? What do you do next with that information? And I said, well, you know, you be aggressively faithful, right? Be aggressive with your faith. And that could mean a couple different things, you guys. That could mean packing up and leaving like we did. We definitely were aggressive with our faith. We felt like in the COVID era, we just barely had a chance to escape. And now we're here, living life in Africa, with no holds on us, right? We're able to, raise our children according to Torah in the way that we choose. You see, the way that we see fit, with nobody knocking on our door trying to see what it is that we're up to, and none of the dangers that America provides, the dangers of drugs, the dangers of gangs, the dangers of white supremacy. None of that is here, right? So we had an opportunity to raise our children in a really, really special way. That was our aggressive faith, in action. That's what we were able to do, and at one point weren't able to do. But like we said, with the businesses and with the forward motion, we became able to reposition ourselves in a new country, to literally and physically escape Babylon. So we spiritually escaped a long time ago, but even with the spiritual and mental escape, you do still have the constraints of the Babylonian society will be all over you. If you escape in your mind, that doesn't mean your neighbor has, right? And so you still are trapped according to your neighbor's behavior too. If your neighbor is persuaded by a gang, then you're going to be terrorized. If your neighbor's persuaded by a party, then you have the potential to be terrorized as well, especially if it's the Republican Party, right? And now we have a whole nation full of people that are persuaded by the Republican Party who are potentially dangerous, right? And the same thing on the other side, but just not as dangerous as the Republicans are going to be right now. Do you see what I'm saying? So we know for a fact what the Bible says about leaving Babylon. Come out of her, my people, that you do not partake in her sins, and that you are also not destroyed in her, that you do not receive of her plagues, or take of her sins. And I know I'm butchering that verse. We all know is Revelation 18:3, I think. 18:3, 18:4. But it's a command to get out of Babylon, and we can see the necessity in this era that we live in today. There have been many, many eras that have come and gone that that also that you could have escaped in. For one, if you would have fled with Demona in 1970 or around there, the group that followed Ben Ami out of Chicago, then you would have missed the entire gang wave. You would have missed the entire, or you would have been halfway through the heroin era, and you would have missed the entire crack era. You'd have been living in Israel and missed the crack era. You see what I'm saying? They had their own problems in Israel, but they missed crack. You see, they have their mothers and fathers and full families and, you know, together, and a culture to pull from. Do you see what I'm saying? These are the benefits of physically leaving. If you know that America's going to attack your people every generation in a new and more sophisticated way, you don't want to stay around for that attack. You want to go ahead and you want to move around. And so that's one, really the sensible benefit of being aggressively faithful, right? Another thing that you can do is, as we were discussing, leave Babylon in your mind, right? You cannot participate in elections. You cannot participate in the processes that the elections involve, and then you can preach that, and you can preach rejection of Babylonian society. Even though it'd be hard to do being in Babylon, that's one thing you can do if you can't get out. And we know that not everybody can escape in the way that we did. So these are things that you can do with this information, right? This information allows you to recognize that that people are not on our side, right? Trump is not on your side. If he's a Magogite that is from a clan of Magogites looking to take control, then there's no way that he can be on your side. If Kamala is married to a Magogite that we know is also after the same thing, then she has to have given her allegiance to that group of people and not to you, right? The question is whether Kamala is black or not. That's null and void. That question is besides the point. Kamala is married to someone who is Ashkenazi Jewish. That means that she herself is Ashkenazi Jewish. You are what your husband is. Your husband is the leader of your household. You're not overstepping your husband who has $1 billion genocidal prison country behind him, and then going to give things to their mortal enemy. No, you're not going to do that. You're in place to do the exact opposite. That's why she has the husband that is Ashkenazi Jewish, because she is a front person for a hidden Jewish establishment behind her. Do you guys see what I'm saying? And it's the same thing for Trump. It's no different for Trump. Um, so you just have to recognize that this is the case. And coming to these conclusions with the information that you have would allow you to recognize that, so that you're not slipping into those traps of giving your oppressor permission to oppress you, which is what a vote is. Especially for our people, it may be a little different for people that are benefiting, from these people being in power. But for us, it's always going to work a certain way. And we don't want to vote and give our oppressor permission to oppress us. Do you see what I'm saying? A vote for anybody in this election is a vote for your oppressor. All right, you guys? That's all I got. All right, here I come. If there's no questions, I'll go back over and see what comments are left. But these have been my Ashkanazim experiences. They've all been moments of clarity for me, just recognizing that they recognize too in average walking, waking life. Okay, you guys. Shalom, shalom.
It's 11:32, Abba.
Okay, that means it's bedtime, right?